Hello students, today I'll give you a brief summary and analysis of the poem Fern Hill by Dylan Thomas. The poem Fern Hill begins with the speaker happily recounting spending time outside in a picturesque landscape with green grass, apple trees and a starry sky where he felt like a prince. He details his adventures as a youth, recalling how he acted as both a huntsman and herdsman, and saying that time allowed him to play in the sun once only. The first hint that this happiness won't last. Throughout the first three stanzas, as we know that the poem is divided into six stanzas, so throughout the first three stanzas, the speaker continues to detail his adventures and their landscape. He rules his natural dominion, referring to himself as Prince of the Apple Towns and famous among the barns. And it seems he alone is present in this natural world along with the animals. In the second stanza, he expends on his adventures as a green and carefree boy, his greenness or his youth matching that of the landscape. He repeats some phrases like time let me, golden, green and golden. Now, beginning lines with them just as he did in the first stanza, he tries to symbolize the happiness and the space given to him by time during his youth and his childhood. In the third stanza, he continues to elaborate on the landscape, getting caught up in his descriptions as he lists thing after magical thing, beginning several lines with and. In the fourth stanza, he compares witnessing the coming of the day to Adam and Eve in Eden and God creating the universe. The next stanza begins the poem's ending tone of regret, alluding to the Pied Piper as the speaker begins with the phrase, "Nothing I cared," to characterize himself as heedless, indicating his later regret. The speaker ends the poem lamenting his carelessness and mourning the loss of his childhood and innocence, beginning the stanza by repeating the phrase, "Nothing I cared," from the previous stanza. So, Fern Hill is one of the most popular of Dylan Thomas' poems. Wonderfully fresh and full of vitality, the words combine together in highly original ways to picture the joyful exhilaration of a child. This originality confuses some readers. Striking phrases such as happy as the grass was green, prince of the apple towns, at my sky blue trades. These phrases surprise by their novelty, and at first it is difficult to be sure what effects are intended. These unusual images are evocative rather than precise, and their purpose is to create a strong emotional response rather than to define a particular attitude. Thomas deliberately uses all his wit and subtlety to gather into each image a wide range of associations. Essentially, a romantic poet, he is trying to communicate an experience which is almost beyond expression. This type of poetry has often been held in low esteem by modern analytic critics who have little to say about the large emotional effects achieved through evocative rhythms and imagery. It is true that some of the images in Fern Hill appear to have been chosen at random. For example, what effects are intended by the line "down the rivers of the windfall light," and other similar examples make the poem as a whole a little diffuse. But there is no point in overemphasizing this. Thomas is celebrating the divine innocence of a child, and for him, this is a mystery beyond analysis. The magical landscapes of the poem have a twofold effect. They create a new freshness and wonder of a child's vision, but at the same time, they express Thomas' adult interpretation of his past experience. This is not forced upon the reader by direct comment or moralizing, but is shown in and through the concrete pictures of the boy's life on the farm. The noise of water passing over the pebble is like church bells calling the boy to worship. Thomas conveys his adult belief that the boy's awakening to the beauty of nature has a divine significance and that all human joy is holy. A comparable example can be seen in the middle of the third stanza. After a day of excitement, the child, as he falls to sleep, continues to feel the movements of the day. As I rode to sleep, when he states this thing. But the continuation of movement into the night as the boy hears the owls and night jars suggests a mysterious and unending vitality in nature itself. In the phrases, under the simple stars and blessed among stables, the words simple and blessed are introduced not to make explicit a definite religious viewpoint, but to evoke a general feeling of reverence for the innocence of a child. The gaiety and strength of the poem comes largely from this type of adult interpretation. Thomas is aware of the power of time, but instead of becoming melancholy and nostalgic, he sees the joy of his childhood as something for which to be thankful, and as itself part of the wonder of all creation. Instead of giving way to regrets, he exults in what has been. The boy does not appear in any way separate from his surroundings. This effect is achieved in part by the use of transferred epithets, and transferred epithets I also mentioned while explaining these stanzas. So, transferred epithets in phrases like the lilting house, happy yard, gay house. These words describe how the boy's emotions transform every object he perceives. But also, they prevent us from feeling that he lives in an alien environment. The boy is honored among foxes and pheasants by the gay house, an integral part of all created things. For Thomas, the child achieves an exalted state, for he is a prince, honored and lordly, a rightful inheritor of the blessings of nature. Lines such as "the hay feels high as the house" evoke a sense of abundance, of a world of plenty, and which the boys of a world of plenty of which the boy's exuberance is but a part. He is green and golden, innocent and yet overheaped with gifts. His mind moves rapidly from one impression to the next, and this energy, is reflected in the many quick movements of the poem. All the sun long it was running, with a lilting rhythm, with its light stresses. Happy as the grass was green, carries the reader on in quick surges of delight. The long sentences, beautifully constructed and controlled by Thomas, gives this feeling of continuous pleasure. No sharp breaks interrupt the exuberant flow. These expressions of mystery and power move to a climax in stanza 4. When the boy awakens in the morning, the farm appears like the Garden of Eden, a revelation of innocence. It is typical of Thomas that this new awareness is expressed in concrete terms. When dealing with comparable experiences, Wordsworth moves away from the actual towards a mysticism beyond the world of the senses. He talks of something far more deeply interfused in nature and tries to find expression for an awareness of the transcendental. Thomas' sense of wonder comes from participation in life itself, for he glories in what is revealed through the senses and does not look beyond. So there is a difference between Wordsworth and Thomas. The spellbound horses are mysterious, to be praised in song, not as symbols of a transcendental reality, but for their own force and beauty. From the beginning of the poem, the child's simple, unreflecting vitality is seen as a gift of time, soon to be withdrawn. So, in the literature of the post 1945 world, so often full of anger and despair, Dylan Thomas' faith in life seems to some people naive, quite natural and simple. But in this poem, time and death are accepted as undeniable facts, yet Thomas' attitude is one of courage and sanity. In a world faced by total destruction, he reminds us of the wonder and mystery of individual experience, and for this, we ourselves should be thankful to him. So that's all for the analysis of the poem Fern Hill by Dylan Thomas. Thank you.